nature equivalent of a revolution is a mutation that is so drastic that it generally leads to the death of the organism, because it's the subtle modifications, subtle alterations that have an impact, and then of course they can be accelerated through various selection pressures. So you can have, an environment can change radically. I think in architecture and in cities, something similar is at play, that when we tear down all of the existing city and we start over with a more sort of pure ideological approach, the results are so untested, and the thinking may be too idealized, so it's missing out on some of the other aspects of life, or the smaller aspects of life, or the seemingly less important aspects of life. But as a result, they end up failing. Whereas when we evolve from the existing city through subtle but pure modifications or changes, we have a higher chance to achieve something successful. So that's why I love the oxymoron of pragmatic utopia.
How important is traveling for a student and for an architect from your point of view?
I think let's say there's like two different kinds of traveling, right? And I think they're both important. And if architecture is the art and design of sort of creating the framework for the life you want to live, then unlike other professions, our curriculum is actually out there. It's not really in books, it's truly in reality. And therefore that's the best way to experience it. And secondly, you can also say all of Earth is a giant laboratory of 7.8 billion people every day trying to live their lives as good as they can and trying to organize that life as good as they can. So that means that the truth is probably not to be found in Madrid or in Copenhagen, but there's parts of the Madrilenian invention and there's parts of the sort of Copenhagen invention that could be incredibly relevant and beneficial. So in that sense, I think the center is probably, I always say this, that architecture is the art and science of creating the framework for the life we want to live, right? And then I think as we evolve, as the architectural discourse evolves, we become more and more keenly aware of how certain factors or certain considerations can also, if understood, lead to knowledge and information that can inform even better design decisions, right? As you evolve as a human being, and of course the student days is an important aspect in the becoming you. Identity is of course your understanding of yourself and how you project yourself to the world. But it is just as much in your surroundings, understanding of you, and in a way, because you know what's expected from you, you are somehow maintained or kept or confined in the identity you already had. I have normally said that one of the things that I find tricky about architecture and architects is that I think very often architects put on a kind of architect hat when they design. So they're not really thinking about how would they want to live. They're thinking more about architecture. And then when you visit them, they live very differently from how they design for others. And I think it's important that you are the same human being when you're an architect as when you are at home. I probably think I'm much more the same, but the same in a different environment, of course, offers a new form of life or a new sort of activity. because I really think it's crucial as architects that we remember our humanity before we put on the architect's hat. And we really ask ourselves, we may like this architecturally, but do we like it for our life? Maybe not so sure. There's this saying that necessity is the mother of invention, right? And of course, as a creative person, you're looking for freedom, right? Creative freedom. But in fact, there's an incredible power in the difficulty and the commitment to identifying necessity, like sort of, and right now, one great source of necessity is the challenges of climate change, but you have social necessities, you have environmental necessities, you have economical necessities. And whenever you can identify something as truly important, worth solving, like an important problem worth solving, and an important challenge worth addressing, then rather than that being a burden, it actually can become empowering, because rather than you just trying to do something for fun, it's you trying to do something that is truly fundamentally important and necessary. And when it gets difficult, you have the power that you know that it's worth spending your energy on. And ultimately, the necessity, the difficulty, the obstacle, even if it feels like it inhibits your freedom, it actually sort of allows you to funnel your search for freedom to find new ways to explore. So in that sense, I think, look for the necessity. Once you're on a mission, it's much easier to get the power and the sort of energy to get there.
And how do you picture the university within 10 years? If we were to build or increase the size of a university, how should it look like?
The true education is the studio where the students sit and work together. They show each other things, they criticize each other's works, they admire each other's works. And once in a while, the advisors walk through and it becomes a much more immersive experience. And I think the academic institution of the future, especially in architecture, because that's what I really understand, of course, more than anything else, is about the physical environment, but maybe less about classrooms and more about, studio space.